This episode of After Dark is brought to you with limited commercial interruption by Netflix. For a free 30-day trial, head on over to netflix.com/GamebreakerTV.
Gamebreaker TV.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to After Dark, the show where you guys call in and ask your questions live every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. PDT. So let's just jump right into it and get these show on the road. We're already running a little bit behind. So joining us tonight, the one, the only, Mr. Josh Allen, aka Lore.
Hello.
Yo, how's it going, man?
Good.
Wonderful, wonderful. And joining us like he does every week is, oh wait, he's out getting more ladies. Darnell, you gotta start giving me some notice, man. I'll go out with you or something. You can't just, No Darnell tonight, so it's just Mr. Allen and I. But that doesn't mean that we can't open up the lines and start taking your calls. So let's do so right now. Let's just get the show started. Caller, you're on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name, tell us where you're from, and tell us your question.
Hi, my name is Danny Costelli. I'm from Bellingham, Washington, and I wanted to know, like, after seeing what crazy changes can be made to World of Warcraft after that weekend in Las Vegas, if you guys had the unlimited power of Ghostcrawler, what crazy and bizarre changes would you guys make to classes?
Classes specific. Well, now you understand what you're doing, right? Josh is going to talk about how paladins should be giving and everything. I'm going to talk about how druids should go back to the way they used to be. Give me back my fear immunity for berserk. I'm starting to get annoyed. I want my 12-second fear immunity. That's the only way I killed warlocks.
That seems balanced. 12-second fear immunity.
On top
Speaking
of the
warlocks. No, my thing would totally be giving the actual tanking spec to warlocks, because we had one for all of about 2 patches in beta.
No, that was awful in beta. It was a lot of fun, but that was broken. It was broken,
but it was broken, but it can be balanced. It can be done. It just was a numbers thing. Like, they just had way too much raw damage reduction. That was what that came down to. Too much raw damage reduction, too much self-healing. You can tone those numbers down, and then it's fine. I would love to see a actual Demon Hunter spec on warlocks. Like, make that the 4th spec. People have been asking for demon hunters for years. There's no, like, are they going to add demon hunters as a hero class? I don't think they would actually do that. I don't think that would make too much sense. We've already got rogues, monks, all these other people that are melee classes now. Seems like there's a little bit too much overlap there. But they could add it as a spec to warlocks. Give warlocks a melee tree.
What are we doing? We're giving four specs to a class or something? I'm calling unfair. Just saying. Why do they get 4 classes? Why can't... Oh. Wait a second.
I just think it'd be awesome. I don't necessarily think it... Like, I'd have to... I have not put enough thought into it to make sure, like look at it from all angles and be like, would this really make sense? I know Shaman get really butthurt every time I say that, because it's like, what do you mean? Warlock tanks before Shaman tanks? But it was fun, and I used to tank as a Shaman too, so I just kind of, it was a lot of fun. I liked it. I want to see that become an actual spec.
So Daniel, it was Daniel, right?
Yeah.
What about you? I mean, you threw the question to us, but what do you think? Like, obviously, this has got your mind ticking on what kind of changes you would like to see. What changes? What's the one change, the most radical thing you could think of to bring to World of Warcraft?
I would want a ranged DPS spec for paladins, like working that way. They're just like more uses for the stamina plate, and just like working like another like role. And I would also just like a 4 spec for all classes, honestly, because I feel like generating a class is maybe harder than generating a spec. I could be wrong. I have no idea. I'm not a developer, so who knows?
Well, Josh, okay, so that actually brings up an interesting question, because we've had a class I mean, I don't want to say Shakadins were really a ranged paladin class, but
there was a period where they were really good in PvP, but they haven't ever really been very solid in PvE, yeah.
So what do you think about the idea? You know, you talked about 4 specs to warlocks. Daniel brought up the idea of bringing 4 specs to all players. What if they were to kind of try and embrace the druid model of things, where you got a tank spec for every class, you've got a melee spec for every class, you've got a ranged and a healer spec for every class? Do you think that would oversaturate and convolute the already built class system?
It's an interesting sort of thought experiment, I guess. It was something that Ghostcrawler was talking about on Twitter recently as well, where someone asked, why not just give 4 specs to all classes and give the pure classes a hybrid spec? So maybe mages would get a healing spec or something. Warlocks could get a tanking spec. Hunters could get like a tanking spec of some sort as well. Maybe like using their pet to tank or something. Could be ways to do it. Why not just do that for all classes? Get rid of purists, have every class be a hybrid. And it's the thing that Ghostcrawler brought up that actually he made a really, really good point, is that a lot of people play the pure classes because they don't want to do those specs. And it's not just a matter of, well, you could just never spec that. It's a question of, like, I've been a Ret Paladin for a long time. I've been a protection spec Ret Paladin for a long time because we've needed the tank. And it always runs into situations where I would rather be Ret because I'd rather do DPS.
That's always the worst.
But I end up tanking. Yeah,
I get Healy gear forced on me, and I don't even have Healy as my second spec. They're like, no, just take it because we'll need you to heal for us at some point. It's like, no, I don't want to.
It's like being doomed. It's like, here, take this. You're gonna spec that later. Trust me. Yeah, so I think there is a valid point to that in terms of not wanting to force people into doing something that they just didn't want to do. A lot like, I'm gonna be honest, part of the reason that I switched to my Warlock is because I was kind of tired of constantly having to go to a different spec based on what the raid needs just because I could. And in this dumb roundabout way, not being able to do it is better than saying, I just don't want to do that. So, I think it's a valid point. The other thing that I would say about just giving, like, if you're going to give 4 specs to all classes, I don't necessarily think that they should sit down specifically with the goal of, let's give all classes 4 specs. I think they should sit down and say, okay, what's a good idea, right? So, like, the Dark Hypothesis Demon Hunter thing for Warlocks, that's an idea that it worked, it was interesting, it's cool. They could come up with a healing spec for mages that might be there might be an interesting way to make that happen or something. But if they were to sit down and say, okay, well, rogues, we need a 4th rogue spec. We could, like, what do you, like, maybe a ranged DPS spec or something? But when they sit down and they just start trying to contrive things for the sake of having them, I think that would lead into a lot of specs having, or a lot of classes having that spec that just feels like it's only there so that they could have a 4th spec, and that would be kind of
Band-Aid
gross.
spec, bro. Just give me some bandages, make it so that combat doesn't interrupt. or evasion tank rogues. Bring those guys back, and rogues will be the most happiest DPSers on the planet.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, and it's not that there's not good ideas there. I'm just using that as an example. It's something where if they were to sit down and say, okay, we can't come up with the 4th shaman spec, but with the 4th shaman spec, well, obviously the 4th shaman spec would be tanks, or else people would actually burn down Blizzard headquarters. The 4th Death Knight spec. Do Death Knights get a healing spec? Do they get another DPS spec? What do we do with this 4th Death Knight spec? The ones right now are kind of themed after the 3 runes. Do they what's the idea there? And maybe there's something cool people could come up with. Maybe like a death spec or something.
Knight.
Yeah, a Death Knight. Double Death Knight.
Yes. Why not? It's supposed to be outlandish. This was the outlandish change that we could possibly make. I think a Death Knight or a Double Death Knight needs to be made.
Double Death Knight. There we go.
Double Death Knight.
That'll work.
Title of the episode. All right, let's throw it back out to another caller and keep moving on. Caller, you're on line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name, tell us where you're from, and tell us your question.
Hey, Rick from Texas again.
Yo,
Rick.
Hey, first I want to ask who that new chick answering the phone is. She sounds spicy.
Oh gosh, this is just a call-in show for everybody to hit on our mods. I feel like this is, man, that's Kara.
Wow.
One of our I'm actually not sure. Does Kara write for us?
And she's a very nice person, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Oh, okay. I'll just ask my question.
Q got sick of people calling in and hitting on her, so she had to put a proxy up. All right, so
Okay.
Rick, what's your question?
All right, I'm sorry. What do you guys think about the new model on Twitch with the Twitch Turbo for paying?
Josh, I think you had. I saw a tweet. I think was it this morning that I saw? You were talking about the Twitch
Yeah, I was
Turbo, and you
talking
were
about it a
kind of
little bit.
excited about it.
I was really hoping somebody was going to call it and ask about this because I have so many words to make on this. I'm going to try and keep it brief.
Be sure to
though.
share. Be sure to share.
Yeah,
Come on now. This
yeah,
isn't
I'm going to
PST.
try and okay. So there's a lot of problems with the current Twitch model, and that's why I'm excited for this thing. If they can make it work. So big caveat at the start. There's obviously a lot of room for error. People keep pointing out things. Well, what if they do this? What if they do that? Well, if they do these random other things, then sure, it will suck. If they decide to make it terrible, then it will be terrible. That's how it works. But couple problems with how the model works right now. First off, ad block is a major problem in the streaming industry, I guess you could call it right now. It's a major problem because people will install it because people don't want to see ads. Whole separate discussion there. But it exists. People will install it and they can't they want to get rid of the ads. This gives an alternative for people who are interested. They don't want to see ads anymore. But they also recognize that it does deny the streamer some revenue by running ad blocks. So this way, when they actually, for those who aren't familiar with how it works, the streamer still gets credited with an ad play when you would have seen an ad, and then Twitch just pays the streamer directly, as though they had seen an ad, even though you don't see one. It gets credited with an ad play. The other thing that's really awesome about it is it actually helps a lot with an issue we call fill rate. That is another thing in streaming where say Nissan, for example, goes to Twitch or CBSI or whoever they've got handling this right now and says, okay, we will sell you 50,000 ad plays of this thing. They will pay them for the 50,000 ad plays. Then Twitch can run that ad 50,000 times. Now, the problem is if they run out of ads, there's just no more, they don't have the 50,000 ads have been played. They run out of ads. People stop seeing ads. So what that means is that by doing this, it can actually cause ads to play more regularly in cases where there just wouldn't have been an ad. It would have been the random situation where you play an ad and nobody sees anything at all because there weren't any ads left to play. That's been a problem in the past, and especially in these, January is one of the worst months for advertising revenue. So in months like January, there's been a gap, and it's been a big problem. So this is what Twitch Turbo does is it gives people a way to not see ads on Twitch anymore that doesn't screw over the streamer and also allows you to watch more than one stream without seeing ads, because that's kind of the problem with the subscription model they have right now. Only a few people have it, and the part of the reason for that is if they gave it to everybody, like how many people are going to subscribe to 5 or 6 different channels? You're not. You're gonna like subscribe to 2 or 3 of them and then install ad blocks so you don't see the ads on the other ones. So I do think there's a lot of potential to it. I'm pretty excited to see how it shapes out. I think it's going to be good for the end user. I think it's going to be good for the streamer, and I think it's going to be good for Twitch as well.
So let's talk value of this. Now, the subscription was $8.99, correct?
Yes, $9 basically.
So, all right. Now, the thing that there is there. Okay, so I'm a streamer. I watch. Now I don't want to come out and say that there aren't people who directly want to subscribe simply to watch Gamebreaker TV and ingest some money into Gamebreaker. But let's just say I'm just an average streamer who basically watches maybe 1 or 2 channels. Does the value of paying $9 for an adless service justify the cost based on maybe what I
If you're
guess
only watching...
do the channels benefit more, because it's not the person is going to vary
okay, so
on their own ideals. But I guess what it really does is, how is this going to affect the revenue that the streamers and the channels are getting in by a $9 rate versus a ad every single view? Well, no, they're going to be getting paid every single view. Still, they're still tracking that.
So if you're looking at it from ad revenue, there's no difference in terms of ad revenue for someone who's on Turbo and someone who's not. No difference in ad revenue. The only difference is that you always get paid for every Turbo member who's watching your stream, even though they're not seeing ads. Whereas Other people, maybe they have ad block, maybe there aren't enough ads to actually play them an ad, and so on. So that's important to understand. In terms of subscriptions, they're still kind of ironing that out a little bit, and Twitch has mentioned, sort of in the wake of a lot of the feedback they've been getting, that they are looking into some ways to improve the relationship between, they're looking into a reason for people who have turbo access to also subscribe to somebody. But if you're talking about somebody who only watches 1 or 2 streams, and both of those streams do have the subscribe button available, it makes more sense to subscribe to one stream for sure, because then you're only paying $5 compared to the $9 that you'd be paying for Twitch Turbo. And for 2 streams, depending on the individual benefits that the streamers give, because that's part of how the subscribe thing works, is that you're expected to give extra benefits to your viewers in terms of things like Towley has his Sub Sunday thing where he plays games that his subs actually recommend to him. A few other, like, people will have sub-only guilds, or they will say, oh, I'll play with the subscribers on this day, or something like that. There's little extra perks that people will do for stuff like that. If there's 2 channels that you watch, I would just pay the extra $1 and subscribe to both of them directly and get the individual perks on both channels. The subscription will still result in more revenue to that channel than Twitch Turbo will, because sub revenue is a little bit better and it's more reliable than ad revenue. That being said, there is still a major benefit here, I think, for people who have a sub button, because a lot of people aren't going to subscribe to their channel anyway. They will get Twitch Turbo instead, and so they do get that extra ad revenue from it. It's not like it's not like they're going to massively lose subscribers either, is the thing, because like I said, if you're only watching 1 or 2 channels, it's better to just keep those subscriptions the way they are. And something that I actually made a comment on Reddit where I was just really speculating, and then Fuzzy Otterballs, who manages this is his name, he manages the whole thing, he manages the whole subscription thing, came in and basically verified that all of my speculations were correct, so go me. But the vast majority of subscribers right now only have 1 subscription. There are a bunch that will have 2, and that's kind of the iffy point where it's like, when you have 2, do you drop 1 and get Turbo instead? Or do you drop both of them and get Turbo instead? I think most people will keep 2, and very few people actually have 3 or more. And at the 3 point, when there's 3 subscriptions that you have, at that point you'll probably consider dropping those subscriptions and getting Turbo instead. But that's very, very few people.
Do you think this is something, a better model than, we haven't come out and we don't know exactly how the YouTube pay-per-view model is going to be, but do you think this is a good enough model that YouTube should maybe stand up and take notice to apply? Because we talked about that, I believe, last week. Or do you think that there's a better way to go about this?
I think every site that serves ads should have some sort of pay for this and we won't serve ads to you anymore method set up. I think every site that has that should have that in place. Because the fact is, a lot of people go to ad block just as a last resort. They go to a site, they're watching videos on YouTube, they're watching streams on Twitch TV, and they just finally say, no, I've had enough of this. I just don't want to see these ads anymore. 1 or 2 bad ads can get in circulation, and that ruins the whole experience. If it just takes 1 bad ad that gets through, and all of a sudden there's this really loud car falling out of an airplane, and you're like, God! And then you go and install ad block, and now every single place that you go to, because most people aren't going to set up a whitelist or a blacklist, every single place that you go to is now no longer getting ad revenue. I think there are enough people out there. Yeah, a lot of people will still just install ad block. There's no real getting rid of that at this point, I don't think. But there are a lot of people who will say, oh, I can just pay for premium. I feel better about that as a person because I am still supporting the people I'm watching. I am still supporting the content that these guys are putting out. I'm willing to put that money in to continue to support these guys, and I get an ad-free experience in the process. I think there's enough people that'll want to do something like that. I would love to see YouTube come out with something like that, where they do basically the same idea for people on YouTube, for channels on YouTube.
All right, well, let's reopen the lines here and throw it back out to the callers. Caller on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name. Tell us where you're from. And tell us your question.
Hey guys, this is Kerry from Riverside. How you guys doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just got done doing some fractals, so pretty good time for the call, actually.
Great. Well, glad to have you on. What you got for us tonight?
Well, I was actually this subject doesn't get brought up too often on the website. I've been with you guys for a very, very long time. I was actually wondering what video game soundtracks you guys find is memorable. Like not just from MMOs, but from pretty much any game that's come out in like the last 10 years.
Does it have to be 10, or can I just go to my childhood?
I mean, you can go to your childhood too. I mean, like my childhood was for the most part like things like Seventh Saga, Chrono Trigger, you know, Battletoads, all those other games. But I mean, you can pretty much go back however far you want to go.
Yeah, we I had Gary, who's sitting just off screen here, pretty much raised his hand and it just shout Mass Effect, which I have. I've got a lot of people that I think would step in line with Mass Effect. Things that stick out for me are Legend of Zelda. Every early Final Fantasy, since they lost Nobuo Uematsu, I think they've been struggling. But that composer knew how to invoke a lot of emotion at the right time and came up with very iconic RPG diddlies that I've got to stand behind. Other ones that stick out. It's recent ones. I love the Miss Pandaria soundtrack. I love the music that's going on in there. I've got a little bit of an afterthought to this question. So, Josh, do you have anything that sticks out in your mind as iconic video game soundtracks that
there's been
just string home?
There's been there's a few indie games that actually popped to mind that have been somewhat recent. Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery had an amazing soundtrack that went along with it. Bastion has an amazing soundtrack. Those are ones that I got both of those as part of the Humble Indie Bundle, and I immediately, as soon as I started playing that game, I went, I'm going to download the soundtrack for this one because it comes with the Humble Indie Bundle.
What about Journey? Did you ever try Journey?
I don't have
PlayStation?
a PS3, so I haven't played. I don't have a PS3, so I haven't played Journey.
It's a very short game for, I think it's maybe about $10. I have never been so immersed in a game that had no, I don't want to say had no story, but had no dialogue, and no real idea of what I was doing. But it was just so artfully crafted by the visuals and the music that it got a significant amount of recognition last year. I think it was up for Game of the Year at the VGAs. Didn't win. I think it won Best Action RPG, or maybe it was just nominated. But it did really, really well, and it's because of the sound design and the emotion that got invoked, which brings me to what I wanted to kind of go into, because I couldn't find it, but we had a Twitter question that was also kind of about, what do you think about the integration of music and sound into MMOs and RPGs, and how important do you think that is? And I think that's huge. When I'm in the process of editing or working, or even just stressed, when I want to go to sleep sometimes, there are times where I will put on a video game Pandora station, because of how much it just connects me and immerses me to the experience. And I think it's so powerful that video game music can take you to far places just from hearing the songs, that I don't think, I think just like movies, you have to highly consider music design and sound design when developing games. It's huge. It's a big part.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize the importance of good audio in something. Like a while back, this microphone right here is something that I've been experimenting with a long time until I finally found a setup that worked well for it. But like the microphone is in the shot, and sometimes people get a little bit frustrated by that. But especially when I'm doing the shows that I record locally and not the ones that I'm live streaming, it's still, I'm hoping it sounds pretty good right now. But when I'm doing the shows I record locally, like the Weekly Marmot and so on, the sound is so much cleaner that basically where I'm going with this, when you hear something, that just sort of sits in the back of your mind, and when it sounds good, it sounds clean, it just sits in the back of your mind and tempers the entire experience that you're having. So when you get epic music in a game like Skyrim, for example, with the whole like Fus Ro Dah song and everything, when that starts playing, then you just get that subtle feeling of, I'm on an epic journey right now. It doesn't matter what you're actually doing. Maybe you're slashing a pig out in the middle of a field somewhere. Who cares? You feel like you're on an epic journey. You feel like you're having an epic time, and you don't specifically notice why that is. And I don't think a lot of people really understand how much of an impact that actually has on the player. Obviously, if there's something like if the graphics just look like a basket of ass, you're gonna recognize that and go, well, this looks terrible. But in a lot of ways, the sound effects, just the little, it's sort of like a backdrop for the whole thing. If you
Do you buy video game soundtracks?
I haven't bought one because most of the video game soundtracks I listen to, like I said, I got through the Humble Indie Bundle. But it was definitely a major perk of the Humble Indie Bundle. And I've actually been thinking of picking up the Zombies soundtrack because that's actually really, really good, and Mike B has been raving about it for a while, so I've been thinking about picking that one up too. I would buy a video game soundtrack. I would buy any music that's good. If it's good music that I can listen to, yeah, totally.
All right, let's move on to our favorite part of the show that we have adopted over here on After Dark. And it's brought to you by Netflix. For a free 30-day trial, head on over to netflix.com/GameBreakerTV. That's right. This episode of Eduardo's Corner is brought to you guys by Netflix. Let's open up the lines. Eduardo, it's always great to have you back. What you got for us this week?
Hello, guys.
How's it going? Now wait, hang on. In pre-show, I saw you rolling your eyes at me about Kingdom Hearts. I don't know if I can have you on this show if you're gonna debate me on this one.
Oh, I'm not a Final Fantasy fan. Sorry.
It's not Final Fantasy. Just because Square Enix made it doesn't mean it's about Final Fantasy.
It's
Final
Fantasy with Mickey Mouse. Be realistic. It's Final Fantasy with Mickey Mouse.
No, and here's the thing, and this is. I'm going off on a side tangent, Eduardo. You're just along for the ride right now. This is why I want to say, I have a lot of respect for that game, and I didn't realize it when I played it through the first time. Is now that I'm playing it at an older generation, and I have the ability to disassociate the Disney movies and the Final Fantasy characters from the story that is Kingdom Hearts. It's its own game. And that's what's so masterful about it is they could have sold it to anyone. They chose to sell it to Disney, and they chose to inject Final Fantasy characters in there. All of those flavor characters are simply there as support. But the story that is Kingdom Hearts is its own entity, and it's masterful. And when you think about the fact that King Mickey could be replaced by anyone and had been any king, it really takes on a different life of its own as its own story. So don't make fun of Kingdom Hearts on my show. All right, Eduardo, what you got for us this week?
I really appreciate Kingdom Hearts. I'm just angry that Square Enix doesn't pay much attention to Ogre Tactics. Did you know that game?
No.
Ogre Battle? Ogre Tactics? Tactics Ogre? Oh, come on. That was a game by Square Enix.
I've heard of Tactics Ogre. I haven't played it, but I've heard of it.
Oh, well, I love tactical RPGs. That's my genre.
Okay. And you're going to hate me for saying this reminds me of Final Fantasy Tactics. You'll hate me for saying that.
Final Fantasy Tactics was it basically Tactics Ogre was around before then, and Final Fantasy Tactics just sort of took the idea.
Okay.
So, similar
the first Final Fantasy Tactics on Game Boy Advance, it uses the same engine as Tactics Ogre that came 1 year before that.
All right.
Well, before my question, a person in the chat requested that I sing Happy Birthday to him. It may or may not be his birthday, but he asked for it.
Oh gosh. This happy birthday song from Eduardo brought to you by Netflix. Free 30-day trial, netflix.com/GameBreakerTV. Go!
Okay, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Woo!
Happy birthday, dear sister.
Woo!
Happy birthday to you. And that's
Woo!
it.
All
the
right.
guy.
Wait, did you say that was for Zista?
Sister. That's his name.
Was that not someone's birthday?
No, I'm pretty sure it is, but it's Zista. People that watch my live stream know Zista very well. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Okay. All right. Well, what do you got for us this? What do you got for us this week, Eduardo?
Oh well, do you guys miss the days when there was no DLC. You know, I
Yes.
remember when I was young and beautiful, and I would go to the store and buy a game, and then I could take the game home and play through the entire thing and get all the secret characters and get all the weapons and all the armors just by playing the game. I didn't have to pay an extra $10 for anything.
I absolutely agree with you. 100% agree with you. I'm so sick of DLC games that add on or bring something else. Now in the case of something like yeah, Gary just said Dead Space just announced their DLC today and the game came out today. Like, come on. Like, that's such cheap marketing and it's not fair. Like, for something
and that's actually an improvement for EA. Let's be realistic here. Before, they would announce the DLC before the game even released.
It'll be launch day and you'll have 4 packs of DLC to buy when you go home and put the game in. Like, it's such a cheap money grubbing tactic, and I don't know if we will see it go away because people are willing to buy it.
Well,
it stinks
because the game industry has never been as big, and game developers have to answer to their stockholders too. They have quarterly goals that they have to comply to. I understand that. But I don't think it's fair that they sell you an incomplete product on purpose and then they try to monetize it.
Yeah, no, and here's why it gets really, really stupid for day one DLC. Because I agree 100%. But here's why day one DLC gets really, really stupid. If I'm looking at something like Mass Effect, it had the Prothean squad member was a major plot point, major part of the story. He folded into the rest of the story of Mass Effect 3. I won't say well, because honestly, the storytelling in Mass Effect 3 I thought was pretty trash. But suddenly I'm hearing a bunch of things in my head.
Keep going. I just muted it for now. Keep going.
Okay. No, he was a major part of the story in Mass Effect 3. You did not want to play through Mass Effect 3 without the Prothean squad member. You just didn't. It was like, if you did not have him, you felt like you were missing part of the story. And that's why it gets really, really stupid. Because you buy the game, you get home with it, or you buy it online, download it, etc., and then you're like, oh, I don't have the full game yet. You feel like it doesn't feel like you're getting an extra add-on, which is what DLC is supposed to be. Like, I don't mind DLC when it's like a mini expansion pack for a game that I've already played and enjoyed. I don't have a problem with that at all. But when I get a game that I've never even played yet, fresh out of the box, just install it on the computer, and it says, if you want to play the real game, you need to install this instead. Give us an extra $10. That's when I get pissed off. That's when I stop purchasing EA products.
Now, what about, okay, so back when the collector's edition of Skyrim came out, there was a big debate because I believe one of their head developers mentioned something about the price of video games and how he doesn't like them being as high as they are, yet sat there on his high horse and justified the collector's edition of Skyrim being as high as it was because it was worth it. What if they embrace the model where they release the DLC right at the start, but the DLC they're giving you is expansive enough to justify an additional $10 on top of the $60 that you're paying to get the game? Do you think it's fine then?
In the cases where I haven't come across a case like this personally, that it may exist, but in the case where there's day one DLC, but it's stuff that you don't do right away anyway, if it's stuff that, okay, you've completed the game, this day one DLC is already available, here you go, you can buy some more of this game that you just bought and you already enjoy. That I honestly don't have as much of a problem with. You can easily make the argument that they're spending development time on the DLC then instead of just spending development time on the game. But it doesn't feel as mandatory, I guess is the big thing. It doesn't feel like I'm not getting the full experience of the game by not purchasing this. Because I've gotten the full experience of the game. Like, if the day one DLC in Mass Effect was extra stuff at the end of the story, which I don't know how they do that, but I haven't checked out any of the other DLCs that they've come out with for the game because they all felt kind of pointless, seeing as how the end of Mass Effect 3 went. But if it was something where it's at the end of the story, cool, you finish the game, now you can go buy this DLC if you want more of this game that you were just playing and enjoying. That I don't have a problem with. It's when it's, here's some day one DLC. If you want to really play the game for really reals, then give us an extra $10. That's when I get that SB whack, yo. It makes me very angry. All right.
Like I don't know, like cosmetic stuff. I'm okay with that. But when they prevent you from progressing into the story, or when they gate content, that's when I get angry. When it gets in the way of gameplay.
Yeah, no, and I think that's kind of what we were saying is the issue of DLC is, in my opinion, is fine if it's not taking away from the experience of the game that you just paid $60 for. But if they're requiring you to pay that extra 10 to get the full experience, then they are definitely crossing the line. Unfortunately, we are definitely pressed for time. We got a lot of callers ahead, so I'm gonna have to cut this episode of Eduardo's Corner short. But Eduardo, it's always great having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. See you.
Look forward to your question next week. So real quick, let's throw it out to a Twitter question while we get someone else on the line. Darkwing Dragonlord asks, what makes a raid dungeon encounter fun to you? Josh, you're heavy into the raiding scene, so I'm sure you've seen a lot of new kind of mechanics coming with Mists of Pandaria. But I think for me, what makes a raid encounter fun, the Wrath of the Lich King honestly does stand out in my head as some of the best encounters. I loved the difficulty that came with them. I really liked Alone in the Dark, mostly because there's a little bit of a personal attachment to it because it's the one server first title that I actually have. But I think what makes a raid dungeon encounter fun, out of looking at all of the ones in World of Warcraft, and I know maybe you're not specifically referring to WoW, but I think they've got the strongest raid content. Or the Lich King, Heroic Lich King. What makes a good encounter is not being able to overpower it with gear. Because you can't step into Heroic Lich King with a group that doesn't necessarily know what they're doing or know how to handle the mechanics and just face roll. And that makes such a great experience when you're doing it at the time the content is relevant. And it makes for a great experience when you go back 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, years later. It's still fun to that day. And that is the epitome of my favorite encounter in World of Warcraft. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, you still can't kill Heroic Lich King without knowing what you're doing. It's actually, you still, at level 90 with 7 times as many hit points as you used to have, you can't do that anymore. Or you can't do that still, I should say. To me, what makes a raid and dungeon encounter just feel really, really epic, it feel really fun, I guess was the direct question. I think having really interesting mechanics is obviously very, very important. But to me, it comes down to striking that perfect balance, the ones that, there's a balance to it. And if they can strike the perfect balance between having you have to do a bunch of interesting stuff, but not making it feel overwhelming and just tedious, that I think is when a raid or dungeon encounter really, really feels good to me. When it's something where I can say, okay, we're experimenting with this different stuff. We've got different things coming at us right now. We've been able to figure out a strategy now. We've figured out a way to kill this boss. Now we can execute it, and you can see it. It's in your grasp. You can see it in your sights. You say, okay, we know what we can do here. We're going to be able to kill this boss. We just have to keep working at it and keep trying. That's when the encounters are really fun to me. Is the ones that you say, okay, we can do this. You feel like it's something you can do. I think certain fights, Will the Emperor is one we're working on right now, where one thing goes wrong and everything just turns into a giant mess. Like, it's just one thing goes wrong and the entire fight's over with. And even though it'll take you a little while to actually wipe for it, and maybe you can try to recover from it, if you don't get a grip at the right time or you don't get a CC on the right thing at the right time, it just turns into a giant mess and then everything is screwed. I think fights like that tend to be really, really frustrating more than anything else. They just need to find it. And it's tough to really describe exactly what that balance is, but when something finds the balance between being boring and being frustrating, that's when it really, really strikes that angle of fun. Just enough mechanics to it, interesting enough mechanics to it, to make it something that you that's in your sights that you can do. This is why I don't mind Lei Shi as much, and maybe my tastes are a little bit different because I know a lot of people hate heroic Lei Shi. But Lei Shi is a fight that, to me, feels like one that, yeah, there's a little bit of RNG related to it sometimes, and it can be frustrating when you're progressing on her, and she just decides to do a hide a million times, and you're like, okay, well, now we're just never going to make the enrage timer. It's just not possible. But it's a fight that you feels like you have lots of control over, and it feels like if you wipe, it's your fault, except for those random RNG mistakes, or RNG situations like I was describing. When the fight is not being a huge dick, it's a really fun fight. I think there's a lot of fights that it just feels like, where it just feels like you're going through and you're just kind of trying to stay afloat the whole time and hoping that eventually the boss falls over. Those get frustrating. But the ones where you can sit down, you have a strategy, you have a plan, you just need to execute it, those are the ones that really feel fun to me. Maybe it's because I tend to be a little bit more strategy-oriented in how I'm thinking about
You're
fights,
the one who takes the time to like sit there and analyze raid finder numbers and find the person who's not healing right and then be like, hey, you should do this in raid finder. You need to turn off your brain. That's not what raid finder's for. Get out of here.
I don't, in raid finder, I barely pay attention most of the time. I just go, is this over yet? Am I out of here anymore? But this is why I like Lei Shen a lot in the new. I know it's annoyingly close to Lei Shi in the name, but Lei Shen is the final boss of the Throne of Thunder, at least on normal mode. And he's a lot of fun because you have a lot of choices in terms of how you actually approach the encounter. Sure, there will be something that you eventually figure out, okay, this is the best strategy for the fight, at least for us. Eventually there will be a best strategy that comes out. But when you're working through it, you can sit there and go, okay, we can go to this one first, and then we'll get this mechanic, because he has different mechanics based on where you have him positioned in the room. We can do with this one first, we deal with that one later, and you feel like you have a lot of control. I watched your video on
tankspot.com. Tankspot.com. It's got all the raid previews you could ever want. Head on over, tankspot.com.
Yes, there is actually a video up on it. But it just feels fun to me. I like the fights that you can look at a fight and say, okay, there's all these mechanics, and you can start to formulate a strategy from it. Instead of just, okay, there's all these mechanics, how are we ever going to possibly deal with all of this? This is a giant mess.
All right, let's move on to callers. We got about 5 left, so let's try and get through these as fast as possible. Caller, you're on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name, tell us where you're from, and tell us your question.
Hi, I'm Lucas from Germany again.
Hey, Lucas. Glad to see we actually got you cleared up this time. We're not having those connection issues.
Yeah, it's really nice. At least
can hear you loud and clear.
I have a question that actually works with Eduardo's question really good.
Okay.
The big publishers like EA force a lot of, I would like to say, crap on the developers, like mixing genres and adding DLC, also preventing them from adding high-resolution textures. Dead Space 3, which really annoys the shit out of me right now. Is the publisher side, like EA, actually hurting not the industry, but the community at this point? Because for the industry, it seems to be working. They're making a lot of money, but the community gets annoyed really fast with them, and they, actually hurt them.
Here's my general impression, and this isn't. I don't want to even kind of come across as disrespectful when I say this, but it's, if EA is making money, they're happy with what they're doing. They're okay if the community is not receiving what they're doing well because they're making money doing it. That's their concern. They're running a business, and that's what they're worried about. But I think your question is more, are they doing a disservice to the gamer?
Yeah.
Well,
Josh, what do you think?
Point,
at which point what?
At which point would the gamer actually stop accepting that stuff and stop buying the games?
Exactly. That's something we're starting to see a lot of. It's not just me that's decided not to buy EA products anymore because I'm fed up with their crap. It's lots of people are starting to do that nowadays, and I'm not specifically calling that everybody should go and do this. It's something that if you feel like it's something you should do, then go for it. But if not, then don't feel like I don't want to pressure people into it. But it's something that more and more games. EA lost, what was it, $47 million in the last quarter or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the number was or the time period, but I remember seeing that they had a very big loss very recently. and it's starting to show. That's what's happening with their games. Is they're looking at this stuff, and people are coming out. They're spending all this time. It's kind of funny. They're spending all this time on coming out with DLC to try and nickel and dime people, but people then don't buy the DLC, so they don't make the money back on it. I think
SWTOR.
yeah, and Mass Effect, and Dead Space. Excuse me, what? Dead Franchise 3, I believe that's my
Dead
new
Franchise
term
3.
for that
Gary
one.
will like kick me out of this chair right now and come yell at you if you're bad mouthing Dead Space.
I am. Don't worry. They did so much wrong with that game that if there's a Dead Space 4, then I'll be amazed. But anyway, where was I even going with that? I don't remember anymore. But I do think that gamers will at some point just be fed up with it. It'll take a while. People will continue buying this stuff, and people are slow to learn. The consumer is slow to learn stuff like this. But it's starting to come around, and it's starting to bite EA in the ass, I think. I think it's not to the point where they're actually like not making money off this stuff, but obviously they had a big loss in profits last quarter. So I don't know. I think it's starting to. I think people are just starting to get fed up with them as a whole. So they're just not buying their stuff anymore. And obviously the quality. We can start to see the quality of the games is starting to significantly suffer as well. Dead Space 3 again is a great example if you're talking about the PC port, especially where it's low resolution textures. It's just a mess, and it's just becoming obvious that EA's business model may be working right now, but I don't think it will work long term. I think they're going to have to make some changes if they want to not piss off their entire player base.
All right, let's move on to another caller and get the questions rolling again. So caller on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name, tell us where you're from, and tell us your question.
Hey, Mike. It's Rich from Breckenridge.
You're the teacher, if I'm not mistaken, correct? That we talked to a couple weeks ago?
No, I'm not.
Dang it. I do remember your voice at the very least, though. We're getting repeat callers. We're getting to that point.
Fine. That's
all right,
fine.
Rich, what you got for us this week?
So this was supposed to be like 3 weeks ago, but we had those wonderful technical difficulties. But back then, we were talking more about Ghost / StarCraft universe. If it were to happen, do you think it would be more gritty, say like Borderlands, where it's it's a little more dark and a little more MA, or would it be more akin to WoW's kind of tone? And which would you prefer?
Josh, I think we got to throw this one out to you.
I think it would be StarCraft tone, incidentally. I guess that's kind of a cop-out.
Well, that is kind of a cop-out, because you can say,
here's the
well,
thing.
StarCraft's tone can be, they can be rather, bloody, or would they go with more of the PG?
I don't think they would come out with StarCraft Universe, StarCraft Ghost, whatever it is. I don't think they would come out with a StarCraft game and make it cartoony like Warcraft. The Warcraft franchise was always cartoony. It was not World of Warcraft that started it. It wasn't Warcraft 3. It was Warcraft Orcs and Humans that started it. The first Warcraft title. It's always been cartoony. StarCraft has always been Warcraft's sort of dark and gritty big brother, right? That's always, even though it's like a newer game, but it kind of has that little bit more grown-up feel to it. Not a ton more, but a little bit more. I don't think they would go quite to the extent of, actually Borderlands might actually be a good comparison there, because Borderlands there's at least vibrant colors with it, but it's still kind of a dark and gritty thing. I don't think they'd go to the extent of something like Dead Space or something where it's all dark and gritty all the time. And I don't think they would come out with something that's cartoony and happy and everybody's just sort of peacefully living together, which it's a weird contradiction that happens in Warcraft. I think it would be StarCraft style, where it's dark and gritty, except for when it isn't.
Josh, you give some of the most, if it's gonna be bad, it's gonna be bad, but if it's good, it's gonna be good. Those seem to be the responses you get. No? I feel like that was, if it's gritty, it's gritty, and if it's not, it's not. Or was that just... Oh wait, hang on. I totally lost you. I haven't touched anything on my end. Audio connection has been lost. Attempting to reconnect now. This is the Shaftnet Show because Josh, for some reason, got muted. First time this has happened. Hey, Josh, you out there? All right. Well, while we try and see this, hopefully that'll reconnect. Josh, I just hang out. I'm gonna throw it out to another caller and keep the show going here, though. Caller, you're on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name. Tell us where you're from. We're actually connecting to. There we go, right there. Now we got someone on the line. Caller, you out there? Nicole, help me out. How's it going?
Good. It's good. How are you?
Wonderful. Hey, Josh, you there? Joshua? No? All right. Well, Nicole, let us know if you got a question. What you got? I'll try and answer, and then I'll answer for Josh through proxy and make him move his lips while I talk.
Okay. I'm from Alberta, Canada, and I have a general defiance question.
Okay.
Have you tried it? And if you have, do you like it?
I haven't got a chance to try Defiance yet. Real quick, before we let you go, have you?
I have not. I'm so upset that I haven't, but I haven't gotten a chance.
The most I just saw, I was watching Being Human last night, and it's a sci-fi show about werewolves, vampires, and a ghost. And I saw the first. There you are.
Okay, I think GoToMeeting just had a problem for a minute, but you're back now.
So I don't know if you heard that. Questions about Defiance. Have you had a chance to play it, and what do you think? I haven't had a chance to play it, but like I was saying, I saw a trailer for the TV show. I'm not completely sold on the TV show yet from the trailer that I saw. It didn't really tell me much about it, but it does. I'm still very much excited by seeing how a television show and an MMO are going to link and create an experience that is unique from what we've seen in the past. Josh, do you have any thoughts on Defiance? I think we just also lost audio again there, maybe. So we'll see if we can't get that connected. Hang on. Let's see here. We will throw to a Twitter question real quick. So real quick, Cameron Gunrow asks, what do you think of Paul Walker being cast as Agent 47 in the new Hitman film? I made a Twitter just to ask you this. Well, let's test that. Yep, 1 tweet, 7 followers. Cameron Gunthrow. So Agent 47, Paul Walker. It's honestly, we lost Josh completely. It's tough to say. It honestly is, just because I never really saw Paul Walker as an. I think Paul Walker, and chat room, correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, Paul Walker is too deep-seated in the Fast and Furious franchise that I can't see him as a shaved assassin. I just don't know. What about the idea of Johnny Depp being in the Warcraft movie? I don't know if that's been confirmed or not. I heard rumblings about that this weekend, but Johnny Depp potentially stepping into the roles of Warcraft. It's weird to think of how some of these Hollywood A-listers can fit into the video game sphere and what roles they might be taking. Maybe Thrall? Johnny Depp as Thrall. Not really 100% sure there. But I'm not sure. It's not who I would have expected. I would have probably, if the first person that pops into my mind, Jason Statham. I don't know why. That would be my 2 cents right there. Josh, you back? We still have him frozen. So let's try and throw out to a Twitter or to a Skype caller. If not, we'll try and wrap this show up. So caller, on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name, tell us where you're from, and tell us your question. Tell me your question.
Yes, hello.
Hey, how's it going? You want to be my co-pilot here real quick? We can have a conversation.
Oh yeah, we can do that. Well, actually, first off, before I get to my question, I'm going to kind of argue with Josh here, even though he's not in the call. Dead Space, talking about just like Dead Space 3. I got to play it last night a bit. Solo, meh. Co-op is where it's really at. But the real winning part of that for the whole game, to me, especially for that made up for the lack of the solo, was the end boss, which Cthulhu and Shub-Niggurath would be proud of.
I heard the one of the interesting things about its multiplayer is that it's drop in, drop out campaign, like whenever you want. And that is not really embraced by the first person shooter genre as much as it probably should be.
Well, yeah, you missed a lot of some of the side story for the other guy, Carver, when you're playing solo player. But that's where a lot of the horror sits with the game. Yeah, you're playing co-op, but you lose some of the horror aspect, but you get some more real mind screw stuff in the co-op that you don't get in the solo play.
All right, sorry, just trying to get Josh back on the line here. Okay, so with that being said about Dead Space, did you have something else to specifically point out with Dead Space, or is there another another part to your question?
Well, we can actually get to my actual question now. My actual question is not related to Dead Space. It's related to Path of Exile. With that going to be completely free to play, it's an open beta right now, and they're going to do any more character wipes. And there's no pay to win. You just download it, you play it, and you run. You can do it solo. You can do it group. I have no clue what the max limit on the group is currently. You know, it is literally you're getting what you are getting. Period. You know, how do you think it's going to compete with the other MMOs and games like that, especially since it's being compared heavily to Diablo 3 and how it's what Diablo 3 should have been?
I not 100% sure. I'm not big on they're not battle arena games, but I'm not as much of a Diablo fan as I am a MMO fan or the style of Diablo. That said, I personally feel like that genre took a really big hit with everyone's reception of Diablo 3. Now Torchlight took a lot of the fame because of Diablo's struggles. Path of Exile is on a huge up right now, because of the same thing. Now it's tough to say. I think I said this last week, because I need to take some time and jump into Path of Exile now, because I haven't played it since last Christmas, and there was maybe about 3 or 4 hours worth of single player experience there. But it's tough to say. I think where Path of Exile is really going to shine is its skill set. The way that you kind of get a sphere grid of abilities that you can level up and craft and mold your play style really however you want to grow. And I think that's the kind of freedom that a lot of players want to see come back.
Well, and that could also be kind of a hindrance if you think about it, because a lot of people didn't like the sphere grid type setup from Final Fantasy X, and the talent system, the way it works is you can't just point and click and run along and da-da-da-da. You have to put a little bit of thought into it, like, do you want to be a tanking mage? Do you want to be a melee range? You know, these are so many broad choices you can do, but it could also potentially hurt it at the same time, because it's so broad.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you definitely run into some problems. I think right now there's a lot of strength behind it amongst the communities, the community in general. A lot of people are really excited about the game. I don't think it's going to get the draw and exposure that Diablo did, but I don't want to. I don't think that makes any sort of stain or judgment on Path of Exile as its own entity. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to kind of see where it goes, and I should, because it's in open beta right now, so I should take the time to jump in and see. So we got one caller left, so we're gonna just throw to them real quick. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we can get Josh back on. So while we get that caller on, let's just throw out to a Twitter question real fast. Hanson71 wanted to ask, is vertical progression the only way MMORPGs can succeed? It seems people need a carrot on the stick to play the game, and it's a shame we don't have Josh. Josh, actually, are you there? No, it doesn't look like you are. It's a shame. It's a shame we don't have Josh because he said this many, many times. We saw them disregard the carrot on a stick model with Guild Wars. They tried it. They tried creating an MMO that was fun for players who like to play MMOs, that without the need or the desire to grind for better gear, with the ability to jump into endgame battlegrounds and not have a gear disparity between you and the other players. But it truly is needed. You have to feel like you want to keep playing. That's probably why World of Warcraft is still as successful as it is. And I think it was Pocket said this on Twimo months ago, was that people still play World of Warcraft because they've invested so much time into their character that when a new expansion comes out, they jump back in and try and experience, or they feel so invested that it's okay, that they can always go back no matter how long they've left, because of the carrot on a stick, and it keeps leading the players forward instead of just getting an experience where you jump in and have a stale experience. Sorry, I've got so many things going on right now, and it actually looks like we're having difficulties getting on this final caller. So I'm gonna wrap it up right now and just save myself the time and confusion, because guys, things are getting crazy. So if you guys want to follow Josh, be sure to follow him right down there at Devolore, Devolore. He does stuff on Tank Spot all the time, Weekly Marmot, PST, Just a Tip, a whole bunch of really awesome content. You guys can follow me right here at Mike Schaffnitz. I appear right here on After Dark every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. PDT, where you guys call in and create the show if there are no technical difficulties. Be sure to follow at Gamebreaker TV for all of your video game related news. Check out the site. We got a whole bunch of awesome MMO community shows based around World of Warcraft, Star Wars: The Old Republic. If it's MMO, you can find it right here. It's been a crazy week. I'm gonna go home, crack open a beer. See you guys next week.